Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where leaders come to drive the freelance economy forward. So today we have Michael Morris, co-founder and CEO of Torc, one of the leading software development freelance platforms, specifically with LATAM freelance talent. So Michael is a wealth of knowledge. We're talking 10 plus years freelance experience, and he's really been one of the pioneers. So if I'm being honest, I had waited about 6 years to say, hey, Michael, when can we have a time to do exactly what we're going to do in the next 60 minutes? And now is the perfect time. So Michael was the founder of TopCoder. He's been one of the pioneers in the open talent space. But in this, we're really going to talk about everything he's learned in honestly the past 20 years, as well as where the freelance economy is going. Now, one of the things I love about Michael is he's very direct, he's very to the point, and there's no fluff. So you are literally going to hear the exact numbers. You're not going to hear marketing talk. You're going to hear the exact numbers of why freelance networks are so much better than the alternative. And I'll give you a quick number. Traditionally, if you're going to spin up a software dev team, it's going to take you 6+ months if you can even spin it up. With Michael, it's less than 2 weeks. And you're going to hear the exact cost numbers that he brings up. So what I want you to take away from this, besides just insane learnings, I want you to drill into the incentives, and I want you to really listen for why freelance networks and freelance models better align incentives than full-time. And one of the things that he's going to hit on is his North Star is productivity. Specifically, if you're embracing freelance networks to get work done, you're going to have higher productivity. So without further ado, enjoy, then go drive some change. Before we get started, are you stressed with self-employment taxes right now? I know I am. Well, good news. Tax season does not have to spell anxiety because our friends at Formations have built the playbook for us self-employed professionals. They've helped thousands of individuals like us, and they don't just help with taxes. They can help with incorporation, entity management, bookkeeping, payroll, benefits, tax filing, you name it. And on average, they save us around $11,000 each year. Listen, go to formationscorp.com right now and learn how you can maximize your savings and minimize your tax stress. All right, Michael, thank you so much for hopping on. First off, where are you?
I am. I'm about an hour north of Boston in a suburb called New Hampshire.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Newburyport, and I was going to lose my mind because that's where I grew up. I love that you call it a suburb of New Hampshire. Do you have, I expected to see like a live free or die thing in the background though?
No, but I mean, usually half the time I'm sitting next to a lake, but that's not outside my window today. But I do love the outdoors and keep myself pretty busy. 4 kids, lots of sports, lots of outdoor activities.
I love it. So listen, we, for you listeners out there, we've been flirting. I'm going to call it flirting for like 6 years now, right? So we've been in deals together, a lot of meetings together, and always looked up to you and wondered, hey, there's going to be a time I can finally steal you for an hour, 40 minutes. And now is my time. So I am so amped to finally learn from you and finally hear the inside stories about everything you've done. Because beyond, TopCoder, Aperio, Torc now, man, there's so much to learn. So I guess let's start. Could you just give us a little overview right now of Torc? And yeah, let's start with Torc.
Yeah, sure. So, in a lot of ways, I think Torc is a culmination of everything I've learned over my career. So this is the 4th talent business that I worked in, the 3rd one that was kind of a global community model. So, I took a lot of like, hey, what really worked well at, when I was at TopCoder, what really worked well when I was at CloudSpokes, and then applied that to things that are like, oh, well, this could have gone a little better. So Torc, in a nutshell, it is a global community of technologists. We quickly found out that in building our global community, that LATAM was the right place to really emphasize our growth. So we're heavily focused on the LATAM market from a talent perspective. The business model is really, we spend half of our time finding, aggregating, assessing, and making awesome portfolios for our developers. So that's kind of half of the effort of our business. And then the other half is finding companies that are on the demand side that are looking for that talent. So it's fairly simple. It's completely digital platform. It's all remote devs. A lot of the team members that are in place are either come from other talent backgrounds like myself, whether it's TopCoder Cloud Spokes or it's Catalent, or even some of our board members. One of our board members is Frank D'Souza. He was the CEO and founder of Cognizant, and now he's a private equity partner. So we have a lot of expertise in this open talent area.
So there's two immediate questions I'm going to ask, and intentionally we're going to get into the weeds, then we're going to kind of look back, and then probably get in the weeds again. And so this is very unique to you, Mike, and that is you've approached, I'm going to say this industry, but that's going to be the next question. You've approached our space in a way that you've built networks and community rather than marketplaces. And this is me purely going off of assumption and looking from the outside. So looking at the way that you just described Torc and looking at what you built prior, meaning TopCoder, it looks like you've been in the business of building communities and networks, not building large marketplaces where you're really taking marketplace dynamics into account. Is that accurate? And how would you differentiate the difference between a marketplace and a community? And let me also just throw a little tidbit in. It sounds like you're describing NASA more so than insert enterprise X here hiring 100 freelancers. But sorry. So yeah, you go.
So I would say I'd say you got a half right in that. There's a value to a network and a community, right? And I heavily use the word, we talk a lot about a professional network of software developers, but I really look at it like a community. And the way that I measure, is it a community or is it just a list of people, is does that group have a culture, right? And that's something that's a lesson that I learned, in my past lives, where it's like, if you can create a culture inside of a professional network, you will harness network effects. And you can, it's a natural way to harness network effects to grow that side of the business. I do think that, from a marketplace perspective, it's more, it's probably higher transaction volume, lower transactions. There's a lot, lower transaction size is a lot of what you see. And even in our competitors in our space, there's some that focus on the 1 to 2 week size gigs. We're closer to, our minimum is probably 2 months. Our average is probably 6 months. So we're bigger from that perspective. So I think you're right that may not necessarily fit in what people would typically look at as a marketplace. However, we are extremely focused on capturing market dynamics, on targeting network effects and cross-site network effects. It's a bigger, it's on that bigger transaction size. So do I want to have, millions of members in the community? Yes. Do I want to have thousands of transactions per day on the Torc platform? Yes. But that's in the way that we're building the business, that's going to take longer to get there than if we were selling, hey, build a logo or, build a 1 hour, having a 1 hour style, gig or transaction size. It's just going to take us longer to get there. But that is the plan, is really to build that type of scalable business. And one of the learnings that I had in building, my other talent businesses was, if you build one side of the marketplace and outpace the other side. So you've got supply, talent, demand, customers. If you go and build the supply side too quickly, you won't have a vibrant marketplace. There will not be enough work going in to keep that community fed. So you have to build it at the same time. And we didn't, I didn't do that in my past lives. I focused on one, and then I was like, all right, let's go focus on this side. And then, oh, hey, we got to go back on this side. And now I'm trying to be really intentional about growing, having the right amount of capacity in our community to handle the amount of demand we can get from the customers. So growing it, intentionally side by side.
And let me repeat what I heard from you. And I want to do this twofold. I want the clients listening to be able to understand this so that they can tell their boss and their team below them this, because I think this is a crucial point. What I'm hearing you say is that having and I'm going to use the word mobilized, but having a mobilized network and community allows higher value, and value is a derivative of the ticket size and the length, allows you to have a higher value interaction with external talent. Is that an accurate kind of reading through the lines?
Yeah, no, I think so. Because you're asking for more commitment, right? And by definition, more commitment means there's more risk involved. So yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to take it a step further. And that is going to be, I want to talk about the freelancer loyalty. And the reason I want to talk about that is because the data is pretty certain that most freelancers are on between 2 and 4 platforms, right? And John's global survey on freelancing was really good on this. Now, the client problem in terms of that is that when they go to a large horizontal marketplace, if there's not freelancer loyalty, then you can have ghosting, you can have scope creep, because in our book, we call it the amplification effect. And that is, work is always going to be the same. And the freelance economy amplifies the good and amplifies the bad. And so the good of a freelance model is you have highly motivated, quick people delivering outcomes. The bad of it is if they're not motivated, then you can end up running in the wrong direction, having much more scope creep than prior, and having things like ghosting, whereas the full-time employees, they'll just leave usually. But is part of what you're saying is that when you can have a strong networking community, the loyalty aspect of the freelancer delivers the client a much better experience than any technical or software tweak.
Yeah, I think it is all meshed together. And so loyalty is a word, and how you create loyalty, number one, in my opinion, is that concept of a culture, right? So, that it's super important that, when somebody comes to Torc, when a talent comes to Torc or spends time in our Slack channels, they're getting value out of their interaction with the other members of Torc in a way that we have nothing to do with, right? So it's important that we create ways for engagement in our platform and allow for that culture to, we'll be a steward of the culture, but it's its own being, right? So like that's an important piece of it. But from a loyalty perspective, and again, this goes back to things that I learned in past lives. One of my businesses was really focused on, hey, just find the smartest people possible, and then we'll find work for them, right? And at Torc, we didn't take that approach because the guy that gets the best grade on the test is not always the best team member, right? So in Torc, we took approach of how do we build a culture around productivity. And let me talk about the productivity for a second and why it's such an important founding point for us in the business. And I look at productivity, I look at it, there's a couple of different, from a talent perspective, the most productive developers should earn more, period, right? They're worth more, they create more value, they should get paid more. And in the field of software development, your more productive software developers, they're not 20% better. They're 5 times, 10 times better, right? So how do you get these people paid more? We're on that journey. That journey is a long journey, right? That's a long journey. They're still stuck in a world where people feel like time cards measure value. We don't believe in time cards. We have no concept of time cards. In fact, I look at a productive developer has a choice. They can they can use their extra time created from being productive to further their career, to get more money, to get higher rates, to get higher pay. Or they could use their productivity to give themselves more free time, do more hobbies, do more, enjoy their free time. That's a huge benefit to a productive freelancer, and it should be a huge benefit to a productive freelancer. So we amplify that as the messaging for Torc. So, I'll tell you how we've embedded this into the culture. Early on, in the beginning of Torc, we did have the typical issues that you would have in a marketplace where you get subject to ghosting, or you get subject to somebody double dipping and not knowing about it, or we had that stuff pop up and we saw it. It's increasingly less and less, we don't see that anymore. And the reason why is we acquired this company called Codelike. So it was a platform that we bought at the beginning of Torc. And it essentially what it is it's your Apple Watch or your Fitbit that gives the developer a personal view into their own productivity. It's not a tracking tool. It is hey, see how much time you are coding in the zone today. See how much time you are distracted today. See how much time you can look at your peers and see hey, how are they doing? How do you improve yourself? What are the metrics, the developers you look up to? What are their metrics? And it's purely a personal tool for developers. It's not something we provide to our customers as a kind of as a view into the dev's working behavior. It is something that we recognize people for their achievements. We put it on their profile. We gamify it. We give out prizes every month to the people that have the best statistics, that come through. Hey, you worked out the most in the month. Yeah, you're going to get a t-shirt or $100 or a free subscription to GitHub Copilot. These are things that we give out just to incentivize people to care about their own personal productivity. So that's kind of part and parcel with the culture of Torc. So there's, the two sides of it is it's a huge benefit for the talent, for us to teach them and give them a path to become more productive. It's a huge value to our customers when they know that, hey, if I want to find productive developers, I go to Torc, right?
Gotcha. And let me just define and make sure that the audience is able to understand this. So the Torc model, do you have a standard engagement model? Meaning, is this a 2-month X hour a week? What does that standard model look like for you?
The standard model is you can have somebody either full-time or fractional, right? And fractional is generally going to be half-time, quarter-time. And you'll have them assigned to your account or your project for X number of weeks. So like I said, I think at the beginning I was saying, the shortest we've really seen, we don't really have a minimum, but the shortest that we've seen is about 2 months, right? If you're going to get a software developer, they need some time to actually complete things. Our average is about 6 months. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I need somebody to work on something. Now look at our customer base. It's mostly mid-sized companies to large enterprises. There still is not this adoption of fractional talent that I think there should be, right? This smaller companies or the smaller teams in big companies will tend to be more scrappy, and they'll say, hey, I need a data engineer for 20 hours a week for the next 3 months, but that's it. Whereas the big company will just be like, give me a data engineer, right? And they'll just want them 100% dedicated, 40 hours a week. I hope that the tide does shift more towards fractional, because I think that's better. It's certainly better for the most productive talent. Gives them multiple things to work on. They can bump in and out of things. They can, but enterprises are less, they're not doing it as much, and mid-sized companies are still early on. I mean, startups will be more, they're watching their pennies more. So, yeah.
So it's interesting. I was going to ask you to define future of work, meaning because you have such an interesting vantage point, right? You built TopCoder, you were at Aperio, you have such an interesting vantage point of crowdsourcing, freelance gig, all of these terms. you have such an interesting perspective. And so I want you to answer that. But now you do have me hooked on the client side. And so I was expecting we would talk about this at around 30 minutes, but I think let's hit it now. So the question I want to ask you is, the question I want to ask you is, who are the clients? And I really then want to understand, why did they care about this? How do they engage this? And what should they be doing? So that's the logic I want to follow, because you have a super interesting vantage point, like you mentioned, and you just already piqued my curiosity on that. So let's start with, who are the clients that you're talking about? Are these large, mid? Is there specific industries that you see really reach out? Let's start there on the who.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a journey. We just entered our third year. So I would say first year we were mostly small companies. So think of it as startups or small businesses. And that was a lot of like, hey, we had to figure our own stuff out, right? So it was like, a little bit less barrier to find the demand. And as towards the end of year one of our kind of our first year or so, we started to see that the downsides of that size customers, the volatility, right? Especially when, funding markets dry up like we've seen, or VCs are not writing as many checks. So we started to shift to say, all right, we were at, let's say 60% of our business was, small to, SMB. We started to shift now over probably about 60 or more percent of our business is mid to enterprise today. And just a lot more stable. My background has always been in enterprise businesses, so we were going to get there no matter what. It was just kind of the forcing factor of wanting to have more less volatility in our customer customer side. And who are our customers? So we have enterprises that are in high tech. So MongoDB is one of our customers. Blue Yonder is another one of our customers that I would classify as enterprise. We have channel partners that are working with a lot of large enterprises. So think of like either traditional services companies that maybe they have the expertise in the business analysts and the project management, but they don't have the tech capability. So we've partnered with a few channel partners to bring in our capability underneath them. In our mid-market customer segment, it's heavy SaaS and tech focused companies. So given what our skill sets are, it really aligns with SaaS companies. And the industries they fall in would be, we have a decent amount of higher ed. We've got a couple of companies that are in fintech, so it's a cross section of customers. We have a little segment that's government, but we focus on, like, our qualification for are you a fit for Torc is the tech stack. So we're an AWS, Microsoft Azure, a Google Cloud Platform, and Salesforce.com. Those are the tech stacks that we fall in. And that's really our qualification. We're not the organization that we come in and say, hey, we're the experts in whatever, drug discovery, and like bring us in and we'll teach you how to write software for drug discovery. No, we're the experts in the technology that you're going to need to build it. So that's where we want to fall in. And our talent, I'm jumping around here, but our talent is kind of like your architect down, right? So we don't have the business talent. So we're not product managers, we're not project managers, we're architects, and down is where we focus.
Gotcha. And who are you usually getting? Who's usually opening the door and then expanding the door and making sure the lights are on? And what I mean by that is, I think one of the toughest parts of this industry is we don't know who the ideal persona is. And we kind of have a 3-level stakeholder map, right? And so is it a VP of talent acquisition? Is it someone in HR? Probably not, right? But they can shut the door on you. So have you noticed any commonalities in terms of we do really well when it's the CTO or it's a VP in engineering and then they bring in procurement, HR, legal with them? But what have you noticed in terms of who's the right type of person to really, number one, open the door and grab a hold of this?
Yeah, our best ICP is going to be the CTO, and mostly because they're building new product, right? They're building new things. That tends to be where we fall more. And as we get into the larger enterprises, I think that shifts a little bit more into the CIO, right, where there's more overlap. But in your mid-market companies, our VP of engineering and CTO are our main point of contacts.
What are they really grabbing, right? Because what are they really, when they come to you, are they saying, we love the fact that you have highly vetted, right? Or they come to you and saying, we love the fact you can get us talent in days or weeks. What's really that like hook that grabs them?
Yeah, it's speed. It's I often call it, I'm like, we're going to beat anybody in speed to code. So speed to code is from like, you tell us what you need to the person is coding, is like, that's where we want to be the fastest. So one, just being all cloud platforms is a part of that mix. Like there is no like, hey, get them access to a legacy, tech stack environment or whatever, so that's part of it. But then the other is how our platform is built. So we're a white glove automated platform. So you come into Torc, there's an immediate matching process that happens, and we call it calibration. So calibration means that you can come in with a job spec. You can just tell us what you're looking for. You can give us bullet points. That goes into our platform. Our platform tech will come out and say, these are the 3 closest matches we have based on what you told us. Tell us what you like or don't like about these 3 matches. This happens in less than a 30-minute call with the customer. Once we do that, we have almost an exact persona that we're looking for in the community. And we call, the next phase is cloning. So how do we clone that? Right. So cloning is finding people that are exactly a right fit for this. It's heavy skill set based, but it is also geography and rate, right? Geography and rate.
So you hit on something that for you clients hiring, like seriously take your pen out and write this down. And it's what you said, Mike, which is speed to code. The reason I call that out is because you had mentioned in the beginning your North Star was productivity, right? Like that is the North Star for it. One of the, I'd say, toughest sells in terms of why go freelance, but very impactful, is what I would call incentive mismatching. And so when you have a full-time employee, they're not incented to give you their best every single day, every single hour, and they're not incented really to drive massive outcomes. They're incented to stay, right? And they're incented to not take too many risks. They're incented not to take too little, but to really just stay there. And I think, in my background, it's been starting as a freelancer, then going startup Silicon Valley, then a Microsoft, then back to venture-backed startup, now like leading a consulting company, which is funny to me. But the number one thing that always sticks out is when I'm building a team, the motivation and the incentive structure just makes more sense in a fractional freelance model. But if I'm being blunt, I don't know how to sell that, right? It sounds like some like psychology-based or sociology-based value proposition that no CIO, CTO, CMO can go to their boss and say, hey, we're going to do this because of the psychology of productivity. They're going to get laughed out of the building in most cases. So I guess the question for you is, within in all your experience of TopCoder, Aperio, now Torc, is there a way to bridge the gap to have a sexy hook for clients? Or is it just a consistent drumbeat? of this is the value, we're here when we need you, and we're going to give you a hell of a 30-minute experience when you're in here. But what do you think?
You have such a knowledge of this industry. It is this is such a great conversation for me because we're towing the lines between, I can think of like 5 different companies in my mind that do it differently. What I think is there a sexy, let's call it like an Instagram style, sexy feature that in this space? I don't think so. I don't know. Not that I've seen yet. Right. And what I say about that is like, that's something that's, but what I do consider a sexy feature is that calibration process. And once somebody sees it work, and it's 100% tech driven, like we can't do it without the 20,000 people in the Torc community and all that data. We can't do it with all the previous matches and job profiles that we have. We can't do it without the productivity data that we're getting on a daily basis. And so as somebody comes in, the one thing I can tell you for sure is that everybody looking for a talent has an imperfect job rec, right? And so, we start off with that assumption and say, give us 30 minutes and we'll take your imperfect job rec and we'll make it close to perfect, I'll say, right? Through our calibration process, through real people, real profiles, real skill sets, real, synergistic skills that you might be looking for, or, so that to me, it's our sexiest feature, but, it's a 30-minute investment. So, I think
that breaks all software logic, right? It's like less than 3 clicks and you're no longer a sexy feature, but you nailed it. So I want to give you 10 to 15 minutes to educate our audience on LATAM. And you can go the direction also of, why you built TopCoder, what TopCoder taught you to now leading Torc, because I think that's part of the discussion as well. But you've made a statement that LATAM is an opportunity that every business leader needs to have a strategy around, right? From what I've heard from you. Help me understand why.
I'm sure you've seen this and you probably realized it before I did. LATAM. So what happened was in a giant shift of this, in the industry, in the tech industry, was when COVID hit, there were a couple of huge disruptions. I mean, one, first of which was the move to remote, right? That was a huge disruption. But two of the big ripples that came out of that was it really threw a giant wrench into your traditional staffing companies, because they went after talent that was, we want to place you within 60 minutes of the headquarters that you're going to be working in. And that was their business model, right? And so how do you shift a multi-billion-dollar staffing organization with, tens of thousands of people that are built around that concept to all of a sudden we're remote? Because, by definition, if you're trying to get people within 60 miles of an office, you're constraining your possible talent by almost it's almost insurmountable amount. Like you're just not even close to the quality level you could get if you were broad, right? If you were global, let's say, right? Yeah. And the second shift was, which I thought is, now I don't know if how many companies have realized this. I've just seen it and been in the space for so long. Second shift was, now that we're all remote, companies aren't looking to throw it over the wall and have it come back in 6 months. They want to work with the teams, whether they're their employees, their contractors, their freelancers, their consulting companies. They want to work with them. So now what happened was time zone matters, right? Like India is not as convenient. India was fine when it was a 6-month project and you're throwing it over the wall and you're going to talk once a month. But when you want to have daily stand-ups or go back and forth every day or collaborate more frequently, it's not going to work. And if people are going to be remote, I think that was a giant shift in services companies that they weren't expecting. So that's where LATAM came in. It's like, hey, I can get the value. A couple of benefits that I've seen over, let's just call it the global market and then LATAM specific. Number one, time zone alignment to the US, which is where all our customers are right now, US based. Number two is language barrier. Language barrier is low. There is a language barrier, but it's low. Okay, it's not, and generally in our field, most of the people are English speaking. The field of software development is generally English speaking. So it's even lower in our field. That would be number two. Number three is cultural alignment. So, in working with, I've worked in a lot of countries in Asia and had teams that were built out of, hey, one person's in this country, another person's in this country. And what happened was every week there was a different cultural holiday that didn't match up with the rest of the team. Really hard. I remember when I first realized we had a deliverable, and it was probably 2004, and we had a deliverable in January, and I found out that Chinese New Year was a 2-week event.
Yep. Or an Indian wedding, right?
Yeah, or an Indian. So having really close holidays aligned with LATAM, and so and then finally, it's still the benefit, the quality of devs has improved dramatically in the last 10 years. So educational institutions are better. They're graduating. They were ahead of the tech curve, graduating a lot of technologists. We only look for people that are in their second or further along job. We're not looking for first job people. We're looking for people that have experience. And there's a ton of them. But wait, what was the last thing with rate? So it's still, you can get a more experienced developer for half the cost. That's it. So hey, you're remote anyway. You want to have the same time zone. You can get a more experienced person for half the cost. It's just makes sense. And I don't think companies realize this till after the pandemic. So that's why what we're seeing in the growth of LATAM is just incredible.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So it's time zone, it's the low language barrier, it's the cultural alignment, meaning things like holidays and norms, it's the education increasing, and then the rate obviously being half. Now, can you please show off? And what I mean by that is, obviously we don't need logos or names, but could you please show off how a customer company, how this really moved the needle for them?
Large enterprise technology company, customer of ours, was spinning up 16 different dev teams, 4 to 6 people apiece. And the typical onboard, and they were going traditional routes with your global services, big GSIs. And typical onboarding of a resource is 6 to 8 weeks. So of a team, it's beyond that. I won't, extrapolate, but it's, it's to get a full team in place. And they came to us, and within 2 weeks, we had 2 of those 16 teams fully created. And they were built out of people that had never worked together. They're now on, their second or third project together. They stayed together and are now an experienced working unit. But we assemble them out of Latin America in 2 weeks, and that again, 2 weeks to me is still it should be measured in minutes and hours, and it's still measured in days and weeks. But that is that blows the doors off of a traditional model, and it opens people's eyes up to how you can create teams. So if I'm sure the the open talent book is coming out this month, right? So collaboration from Harvard and Lish, John Windsor and Jin from Harvard. That gives like a footprint for like, how would a company do this? And like the more people that start to think this way, like, oh, wait, I can assemble my team, more like a fantasy football draft than your traditional building of a soccer team, right? Like if you can start teaching people how to think that way, I think we can get down to the minutes and hours to create teams and to then disassemble them or reassemble them, right? That like I said at the beginning, like I really, really, really want to see companies make use of fractional talent. Like and like if you're a services company, fractional talent is awful because that guy goes back to a bench, right? That guy has to and it takes him 6 to 8 weeks to get redeployed again if he's good, and in our world, we should be able to deploy that person close to immediately.
Yep. I love how you quietly throw in the, it should be measured by minutes and seconds, not the days and weeks. I just love how you quietly throw that in, it does, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like, did you ever hear about what Google learned when they actually got to, and this is where I'm not technical, so grill me, but what was it, like zero latency in their search results? Did you hear what happened?
No.
People didn't like it. And so they had to actually slow down the search results, and no one really knows why. It's kind of like a plane taking off. We don't understand 100%, right? We understand like 99.7 and it keeps doing it, so it's fine. But like similar thing with Google. And so when you said the minutes to seconds, I was like, whoa, Mike, calm down. Let's get into days and weeks because I think their heads will explode. So this has been beyond incredible. I want to summarize, and I think we could talk for 4+ hours, but what really stands out to me is tying it back to the beginning. You've always been building community-based businesses, whether it's TopCoder or Torc. It seems like you've never sold out in terms of let's have the population of Saudi Arabia on one marketplace and then just slap a 10% transaction fee, putting one and one together. It sounds like you've never done that. Now, the results of that has been you've been able to laser in on what is that one thing that is better, which is productivity. And you've been able to align the incentives so that the developers working off of Torc are better incentivized to have a better speed to code. And in the background, you were then documenting what was required to get there to build a platform that you could show hiring managers what's possible in 30 minutes. So instead of under 3 clicks, it's still going to take 30 minutes. I don't think we can ever get past that, to be honest. We'll see, maybe. And the end result being this example of, hey, you have 16 teams you need to assemble. We can get 2 of those assembled in 2 weeks, where you're going to struggle because you're going to be 6 to 8 weeks on average. And we know it's actually probably going to be longer than that and more expensive. So that's what I've taken away from this is the power of deeply understanding how to really create, manage, organize a fractional ecosystem, because it's tough. And from the leaders listening that are hiring freelancers, I want you to know it's really tough and you need to have a good partner. And so I'm going to finish this with you having a minute to 2 minutes, and please just describe to you what the future of work means. And then I got you for 1 minute of what we like to call fun/rocket hour.
We talked about so many things on this podcast. So I'm gonna go a little different route than what I would normally say in this, which would be kind of your just traditional, 101 future of work. I think it's trust. Like the future of work is based on this concept of trust. And if you look at, there's a degree of trust that has to be built to work remotely. There's a degree of trust that has to be built when assembling a team and making a decision based on a profile. There's a degree of trust that a platform will provide a customer when we say, hey, we'll give you a 2-week trial, right? Like there's a degree. Now, the secret to that is it is a business built on humans, and humans are inherently have flaws. and so, I mean, just, that's the reason why we don't use the word perfect. Right. So you have to have a trust by verify mechanism. And that's what we do at Torc. Like at the end of the day, I don't think we're there yet, but I expect us to know more, especially with tools like Coda-like. And I expect us to know more about what's happening with our devs than what a traditional manager would know about the 10 people sitting outside of his office in cubes. And, that gives us this ability to build a model automated that is built on the concept of trust but verify, right? So I think that the future of work, it's getting people comfortable that, hey, yes, you can trust that this person that is 6,000 miles away is going to deliver for you. Yes, you can trust that this remote resource that you found through a platform, right, you can trust it. A lot of it, and then on the talent side, it's like, hey, I'm not asking you to trust me with this gig, right? Hey, I'll pay you for 6 months. This is your rate. I'm asking you to trust me that I'll get your career from here to here. And you actually mentioned earlier, I'll wrap this up quickly. You mentioned earlier, it's hard to go into somebody and say, hey, let me sell you on the psychology of productivity. But another approach is you sell them on the insanity of the old way, which is like, hey, I'm billing you out hourly for developers. Well, as a traditional consulting company, I'm going to give a really bad view of this for a second. Like, I know this is drastic, but technically that consulting money makes a lot more money on the lower productive people that take more time and bill more hours to do the same work. In fact, take it even a step further, they probably make more money with the person that makes the most mistakes, because there's all that rework and there's all, like, obviously that's a very pessimistic view, but there's inherently wrong. The incentives are not aligned on both sides of that business model. In a platform like Torc, the incentives are aligned, right? The incentives are aligned for the developers to be more productive. The more that the developers earn, the more productive they are, the better it is for the end customers. The more that, and then the more that we make as part of that transaction, just taking a piece of the transaction volume in the middle. So I do think that's the way to start to get people to be convinced over it, convinced over this concept that we're trying to bring to market at Torc.
I love it. And so the trust but verify, and it's really, I think incentives might be the theme of this episode when we really talk about it. So listen, I got you for 1 minute on totally fun, not even work related. We're just going to roll off. You got 5 seconds to answer each. So the first one, I'm actually going to take a big guess here. Are you in Portsmouth or Dover?
Bedford.
An hour north. Oh, you're in Bedford? Okay. Do you, where's the place of like weekend farmers market brunch? Where are you usually going?
Going to the Bedford Village Inn.
Incredible. Typical Friday, Saturday. What are you guys doing? Are you going to dinner? Are you going to farmers markets? What's up on the weekend?
4 kids, 6 club sports. I coach half of them. So it is, we're constantly at games. When we're not at games, we are either skiing on the water or skiing on the snow.
So next question, shovel, snowblower, or hiring someone to do it for you?
4-wheeler with a plow.
That is so New Hampshire.
You need something that can do the ice rink.
That is, and you got the ice rink. You're filling all Boston stereotypes. That is incredible. Okay, we're gonna go with, and maybe you don't even watch it, but favorite show or movie right now?
Ooh, so I just saw the movie is The Finest Hours. Have you seen that? You must have seen that.
No.
Oh, if you grew up on the coast of Massachusetts, it's Coast Guard story, 1952. It's incredible. I just saw it this weekend. I don't know why this movie didn't get more attention. The Finest Hours. Check it out.
Well, okay. Let me ask you. Do you know where the Coast Guard was started?
Chatham?
No. Think about what is the harshest mouth. Look at the other hint. It's the mouth of the Merrimack.
Oh,
Guess
wow.
what?
So Newburyport?
Yeah. That's
Plum
a
Island?
little Clint. Actually, my family owns Bub Lobster, which is that tiny little lobster shack there. It's incredible. So if you ever go, let me know. Okay, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our fun fact. And I will say the dumbest thing I've done in my life was okay, now you're really going to understand. I found a guy on Craigslist in New Hampshire who let me take his jet ski for the day. I think I just gave him $200 in cash. I don't think he even knew about insurance, stuff like that. And so I took the jet ski and I went psychotic in the mouth of the Merrimack because of how big the waves were. And I'm pretty sure it was a Coast Guard boat saying, "Get the hell out of here." So,
oh my gosh,
that was the dumbest thing I've done. But I guess, Mike, you probably do the same thing as the whole entrepreneur's mindset thing. So we don't understand how to be calm. But so last, I'll give you two more. Favorite book?
There's a ton of books that what I'm reading right now. I can't call it my favorite because I've just started, but it's Principles by Ray Dalio.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's my favorite. I mean, if I had to say favorite, it's the Harry Potter series, probably, like something like that. Yeah.
Last question: favorite animal and why?
Dog, because he's in my feet right now.
Oh yeah, he's been quiet. What kind of dog?
Labradoodle.
Okay. And I'm assuming loves the snow, right?
Loves the snow, loves the water. Yep.
That's fun. I still got to get Luca to the snow. So maybe this year. Listen, Mike, this has been absolutely incredible. Where can our listeners find you?
So torc.dev is our website, and I am at mpmars36 on basically all of them, Twitter, LinkedIn. So yeah.
Perfect. Mike, thanks for hopping on. Thanks for listening to the Human Cloud podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. Now, listen, I want to just give a brief overview of what we do at Human Cloud, because we believe that we are the global town square for the freelance revolution. Now, what that means is that we are the strong voice of the freelance community, both you freelance platform leaders, you enterprise freelance leaders, meaning you hiring freelancers, as well as, most important, the freelancers yourselves. And we also have the data for freelance leaders to make sound decisions. So how can you get involved? Well, we have a phenomenal community. We have study groups. We have a trend tracker database. We host workshops. And we would love for you to consider us for advisory and consulting. For more, go check out humancloud.work. See everyone soon.